And we're live. Huge news right now, folks. Come on in. JLR investigates. Uh, Joe Biden is not seeking re-election. And we're trying to get an understanding of what's going on and why this suddenly happened. Come on in. JLR investigates. We did a live stream earlier, breaking it as it was unfolded. Read the statement. And this is some big news, folks. Some big news. This is breaking all over the internet right now about Joe Biden not seeking re-election. Come on in. JLR investigates. As we talk a little bit about what's happening and what's going on, folks, President Biden put out a statement and he said that he is not seeking re-election. And also got some news here that Hillary Clinton is now endorsing and supporting Kamala Harris. President Clinton and Hillary Clinton have endorsed Kamala Harris for president. President Biden has capped his extraordinary career of service with the presidency that has lifted America out of an unprecedented pandemic, created millions of new jobs, rebuilt a battered economy, strengthened our democracy, and restored our standing in the world. By any measure, he has advanced our founders' charge to build a more perfect union in his staged goal of restoring the soul of our nation. We will join millions of Americans in thanking President Biden for what he has accomplished, standing up for America time in and time again. With his North Star always being what's best for the country. We are honored to join President in his endorsing Vice President Harris. And we'll do whatever we can to support her. So there you have it, folks. Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton have endorsed Kamala Harris. So what does this all mean? What does this all mean? Have you ever heard in our lifetime a sitting president bowing out in the middle of campaigning? Now, they reported a couple days ago that he was sick with COVID. Sick with COVID. But why now? But here you go. Why now, folks? Why now? JLR investigates. Come on in as we monitor unprecedented history right here. Something that we have not seen in our lifetimes. Joe Biden not seeking re-election. So all over Twitter right now, over the Twitter feeds, there is a wide range of emotions here and mixed opinions. Biden put out his own statement. My fellow Democrats, I've decided not to accept the nomination and focus all my energies and my duties as president for the remainder of the term. So he's not quitting now. Let's get an understanding. Some people are asking, hey, is he quitting now? He's not quitting the presidency now. He's just going to fulfill his duties until the election. He's going to fulfill his duties until the election here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to flop around the different feeds and see what's going on and see what people are saying. It's all over the network. Special reports. Biden dropping out. Biden dropping out. Biden dropping out. Was he pushed out? Was Biden pushed out? Is he medically unfit and that's why he did it? A lot of unanswered questions here. Now I'm going to show you some other feeds of what's going on. So stick with me as we see what in the world is happening here. Now, they insisted a couple weeks ago that he wasn't going to drop out. They insisted that he was in the race. We kept hearing statements like he was in the race, but now he's suddenly out of the race.
Not a swing necessarily, so it's not going to get you anything there. And that's why I think Shapiro might have the edge. But having said that, if all things are being equal and you're just looking at kind of like the overall record of where this country is now culturally, whether it be immigration, otherwise, I think Bashir gives you more to fight with on some of the cultural issues. And I don't think Shapiro gives you that. But having said that, they got to win Pennsylvania. And Shapiro's popular in Pennsylvania. So it would make sense for Shapiro to be the guy. We'll see.
Yeah. And as John said, the runway being cleared. David, you mentioned the Clintons announcing their support for Kamala Harris. We're starting to see this trickle in as well. The Congressional Black Caucus supports Kamala. I don't think that's any surprise there. But we'll update you whenever some more endorsements come in for Kamala. But again, assuming that Kamala is the one who is sort of crowned the next nominee for Democrats here by those Biden delegates, and the processes that are in place here for this, which is obviously an extremely rare thing to have an incumbent president step down in the midst of a campaign just months out. Where do you guys see the top attack lines? You mentioned, David, the border issue. She was the border czar. Which ones does the Trump campaign feel will have the most effectiveness to them?
Well, take your pick, and that's the good news for Trump campaign. It could be the economy. You can go down the list, but I do think immigration is probably where they're at. Remember, in 2016, Trump won the White House. Why? Immigration was a big deal. He made it a signature issue. He won the White House. In 2020, he did not have to make it a signature issue. Border crossings were down. It wasn't as much of a toxic issue. It was an issue, but it wasn't playing like it was in 2016. He lost. In 2024, here we are again. Immigration is a huge issue, and he's winning again. There are the parallels right there. I think the winning ticket is immigration. It's always been immigration. Kamala Harris is going to make some sort of PDF argument about the economy and the numbers and X, Y, and Z. But let's remember, a lot of those numbers came after COVID. In other words, those jobs were coming back naturally because COVID was coming to an end. The Biden administration is trying to take credit for some of that economic recovery. I mean, can I just say it here on YouTube? Give me a colossal break. I mean, we're not stupid. Don't gaslight us. We know that would have come back regardless of who was in office because those jobs naturally would come back. So this idea that the economy is just coming up roses because Biden brought us out of COVID, any president would have brought us out of COVID once COVID ended. I mean, those jobs would have naturally come back. So anyhow, I think Kamala will be hit on all of that. And I'll be honest with you, get ready for all of the word salad mashups. And she's got plenty of them. And it's kind of cringeworthy. And I know he's already calling her Laughing Kamala, but beyond, or some people have called her Cackling Kamala. But the bottom line is, beyond the laugh, which is just kind of, goofy stuff, but beyond all of that, she has a way with words, and I don't mean that in the kindest way. I mean, once again, I'm not trying to beat up on her, so to speak, on this, but the truth of the matter is that she has been a word salad. I mean, it's everywhere, guys. And this is not, once again, let's not have the media do what they did the first time around, which is like all the conservative media said, look at what's going on with Joe Biden, look what's going on. And we were told, so many people were told that, like, hey, hold on.
So I think that's something that will help whoever winds up replacing Joe Biden in terms of any of these state challenges.
Mr. Christie, this has been an unprecedented election cycle, to say the least. You have on one end the former president of the United States, who had been indicted, who is now running as a convicted felon. On the other end of this, you have Democrats now dealing with the president of the United States withdrawing from the race. We are just about 100 days out until the November election. President Biden making it clear that he endorses his own vice president, Kamala Harris. As much as we can focus on the challenges also for Democrats, Republicans also now are going to have a new challenger that they're going to be facing off with in just about 100 days. How much of a big of a challenge is that for them as well?
Yeah, Rachel, look, it fundamentally changes the race. Now, what none of us yet know is how. But clearly it fundamentally changes the race. The focus of this race right now was going to be two things. Donald Trump's legal challenges and problems, and what does that mean potentially for a second Trump term, and Joe Biden's age and declining capability. Well, point two is now out. People in the media, people in the Republican Party will attempt to continue to make Joe Biden's declining capability an issue, but he's not the candidate anymore. And so, it fundamentally changes the race. But here's the thing. We need to know who the candidate's going to be, and then we have to see how they're going to perform. And that's what's going to happen here is a reset. Folks will get a chance to look at the new candidate, if it's Vice President Harris or whoever it is. And that person is going to have to make a very, very good first impression. Because if they make a bad first impression, this race could well be over. So people are going to be watching. It's going to make the race very different and fundamentally change it. But we don't know in what direction.
Governor Christie, thank you. I want to bring in now Senator Heidi Heitkamp. Senator Heitkamp, we were talking earlier just about how unprecedented this all is, dealing with these fast-moving developments as well for your party. Some of the challenges going forward, and let me ask you just a follow-up to what I was just talking about Governor Christie about with. When we talk about the debate that just happened just a matter of weeks ago, that really set off the sort of chain reaction with Democrats calling on the president to step aside. There is one more debate, and Vice President Kamala Harris does commit to that should she be the Democratic nominee or whoever is in that position. That could come at a very pivotal point in this race too.
Yeah, absolutely. But she's a good debater, and she is a very, very sharp, intelligent woman. But, when you look at moving forward, and what Chris was just saying is you don't win any points by trying to stop someone from getting ballot access. I don't care what the Heritage Society said. I saw polling when Maine and Colorado and Minnesota tried to keep President Trump from being on the ballot, former President Trump. And the independents and undecideds reacted very negatively to that. Plus, why would you turn your attention right now on Joe Biden? The competition is going to be someone else. The other point that I want to make, Rachel, is, and you'll hear more about this as time goes on, the FEC has rules. This money that the Biden campaign has raised was raised for this ticket. If Kamala Harris is not the nominee or on this ticket, that will change the dynamics of how the money can and should be spent. And so that's going to be another factor in the determination that the Democrats will have to make on who their candidate is.
A follow-up for you there. Explain that a little bit more. So this could have an impact even on how the money is spent going forward in this campaign for whoever the Democratic nominee is.
Yeah, the FEC has rules. If you raise money for a candidate and then the candidate is no longer the candidate, in this case, they raise money for a ticket, then something has to happen with that money, and it doesn't automatically translate to the next person who might be nominated. It would have to go to state parties, as I understand it. It could be spent other ways. But remember this, rates have been locked in for this candidate. By that I mean ad rates. And so all of that gets upset if Kamala Harris is not the nominee. And so these are the things that will seep out in the next couple of days in terms of making this decision. It's not just the DNC rules. You have to look at the rules of the FEC.
Not just the DNC rules, the rules of the FEC, also the Democratic Party as a whole, whether or not they're going to rally behind Vice President Kamala Harris as President Biden is endorsing him. There's so much to digest here on this very extraordinary day in American politics, a moment, a historic moment in this nation. I want to turn now to our executive editorial producer, John Santucci. John, for months now, you have had this rematch between President Biden and former President Donald Trump. All that now changing. How is the Trump campaign responding to this?
So the Trump campaign, we've already seen those initial statements, Rachel, of course, Donald Trump attacking Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. We know from our sources that the Trump team has been building a book to take on Kamala Harris, attack her for some of her past statements, and do everything they can to tie her to Joe Biden. Now, look, the Trump team is going to have to very quickly, Rachel, take the money and pivot to attack Kamala Harris. I can tell you from my sources, MAGA Inc., that's Make America Great Again Inc., that is a super PAC aligned with Donald Trump. They've already taken, Rachel, a $5 million ad buy for next week, and they are now turning that on Kamala Harris, an ad that they have already put across social media. And that buy, Rachel, going to target states like Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Arizona. Now, one source high up in the super PAC told me that they're not only going to take that buy, they're going to keep expanding it to other states, and telling me, quote, there's going to be tremendous chaos within the Democratic Party, and our job now is to seize on that. The source goes on to tell me, Rachel, that the whole goal of their efforts is going to say that Kamala Harris was in on the cover-up of Joe Biden's health and start attacking her and her record, adding that our job now is to start prosecuting the case against her, Rachel.
Notable because she obviously is a former prosecutor, something that Senator Heidi Heitkamp says she'll definitely use if she ends up facing off against former President Donald Trump on the debate stage, should she actually become the Democratic nominee. John Santucci, stay with us. Thank you, John Santucci, with that reaction just coming in from the Trump campaign and how they're already preparing for the possibility that it could be Vice President Kamala Harris that former President Donald Trump faces off against in November. I want to bring now in our ABC White House correspondent, Mary Alice Parks. Mary Alice, you have been keeping your ear to the ground, talking to sources within the Democratic Party, but also hearing from delegates who have a lot of questions about how this plays out going forward.
Yeah, Rachel, I just got off the phone with one Democratic state party chair who told me that he was not given a heads up to this news, which is obviously a big deal considering the fact everything we've been talking about for the last hour. But interesting, he did say that he was given a call from the Biden universe or the minute after the news broke. The Biden team wanting to make sure that he was aware of the news, but also that he was checking in with the delegates from his state. Obviously, the conversation, the mechanics of this nomination turned to those delegates like we've been talking about. The state party chair said that in the conversation he's been having with his delegates from his state, I should say it's a large Democratic state, so far, all the Biden delegates telling me that they will cede to these marching orders from the president, that they will back Harris. That is their intention. Like we've been talking about on the air, like you've been talking about with all of your guests, this is a fluid situation. Anything could happen. If all of a sudden we get another name from a governor, a popular member of the Senate, actually challenging Harris, we will have to, of course, go back to these delegates. But in my initial reporting, I can tell you that so far we're hearing these Biden delegates saying that it is in their best interest to stick with the president, or to stick with Harris, because that's what the president asked them to do. I also talked to one longtime DNC leader who told me that when it comes to vetting, he really believes the party has to stick with Harris because she is the only one that has truly been vetted. You know, I asked about governors, senators, and people that are high-profile figures. Surely they have been vetted. But he insisted to me it's just not the same, that a vice president who has been on a national ticket has been vetted across the board, and that right now the Democratic Party just cannot risk a mistake here, and that even a governor, this one DNC leader sort of opined to me, even a governor could, in theory, theory, have some skeleton in the closet that he said the party just should not take that kind of risk. One interesting thing, though, will be not only, of course, who she picks as a running mate once she announces her candidacy, but this question of superdelegates. I mean, this is getting in the weeds, but we don't know exactly if superdelegates, those elected party officials, will be able to vote on the first ballot or not. They have not formalized the rules around that virtual roll call, around any roll call. We know that those rules were set to be put in place this week. So at this stage, Rachel, we are going to be tracking every meeting that the convention staff has, that the DNC party staff has, as they have to rewrite these rules or vote on these rules with such a different sense of urgency, with such a different political landscape, Rachel.
Yeah, Mary Allison, I know you personally will be tracking that for us as well. I want to go back to our chief Washington correspondent, Jonathan Karl. Jonathan, I've been thinking about some of the conversations that I was having on Capitol Hill with many senators, and there were some senators who didn't want to come out publicly and call on the president to step aside until there was sort of this plan in place on who potentially would step up and become the Democratic nominee. We've been following these movements in real time, this breaking news, the president announcing he's going to step aside. Then we saw that post on social media, the president then endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris. And then it was sort of this silence from some of these statements where they were commending President Biden, but not necessarily jumping to the defense or endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris for the job. Has that changed in the span of the last few minutes?
It's starting to change, Rachel. We're starting to see statements from some key senators that are not only commending Joe Biden for taking the decision, the sacrificing his campaign to get out of a race they believed he was going to lose, but also endorsing Kamala Harris. Let me just mention a few key ones. Tammy Baldwin, the Democratic senator from the ever so important state of Wisconsin, put out just blanket endorsement today. I'm proud to endorse Vice President Kamala Harris for President of the United States. And then we have the two senators from Virginia, another key state Democrats must hold if they're going to win in November. Tim Kaine, of course, who had been Hillary Clinton's running mate, saying in his statement, I'm looking forward to working with my friend Kamala Harris and a great ticket mate to keep Virginia blue. And the senior senator from the state of Virginia, Mark Warner, putting out his statement, again, praising Joe Biden, saying the nation owes Joe Biden a debt of gratitude. But when he's done with all that, he ends his statement by saying, I believe Vice President Harris has the experience, energy, and resolve to lead our nation. This November, we must defeat Donald Trump and his backwards agenda. Now, in his statement, Warner says that the decision is ultimately up to the DNC delegates, which is just a fact. But all three of those very key senators saying it's Kamala Harris. And I'll add a fourth, since you asked, Elizabeth Warren, of course, who ran herself against Joe Biden in 2020, saying that Vice President Harris is the person who was chosen by the voters to succeed Joe Biden if needed. She can unite our party, take on Donald Trump, and win in November. So there, you still have some notable individuals.
All right. So we wanted to get a glimpse of what they're saying at the other networks. I do want to say that Nancy Pelosi, one of the most powerful people in the House, put out a statement, folks, and Nancy Pelosi said, Joe Biden is a patriotic American who has always put our country first. His legacy of vision, values, and leadership makes him one of the most quintessential presidents in American history. With love and gratitude to President Biden for always believing in the promise of America and giving the people the opportunity to reach their fulfillment. God bless America with Joe Biden's greatness and goodness. It's interesting that they're saying a lot of the people are pivoting during the day. They pivoted towards Kamala Harris, Harris, as far as the support for Harris. A lot of the big money donors and everything like that starting to publicly endorse her. So I think that what we're seeing is a chain of reaction of effects down the line of people, prominent people in politics, going towards her. That's probably why the Clintons ended up publicly supporting her. I haven't seen the Obamas post anything yet on their feed. But this is big, folks. This is big. So we'll see what happens out of this, but nothing by Barack Obama on there's nothing on with Barack Obama on Twitter, but there's a wide range of emotions. Just like probably a lot of you have a lot of comments across the board, whatever like that. This is a big deal. What's going to happen here at this point? It's shocking. Shocking to say this. Shocking to say the least. So, all right, folks, let me blow myself up. All right, I'll keep you guys informed. Anything else breaks on this, go to the other networks. You can see what's going on. Thanks for spending a little bit of time with me this morning. I'm shocked, and we'll see what happens here. We still don't know anything about, no answers about the prior, attempted assassination on Trump, trying to get some answers out of that. So I am JLR Investigates. I am at the JLR Batcave. I'll keep you informed of what's going on. We don't do politics very often on JLR Investigates, but these are big events. We do big events that happen in the country. So I'll keep you posted on this development. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a good day. JLR Investigates.